You know what? If you like seeing things like this, you go from slave music, Appalachian Trail stuff,
or this
is now new hip hop and rap and everything else, or maybe a little bit of.
For part of the 90s, everything was 98 beats per minute, and it was really it was made a little easier.
Well, then you know what? You're in the right place. This is your home. You are welcome, and we appreciate you.
I'm telling you, man.
Hey, fam. Welcome back to yet another amazing episode of I'm Telling You.
Telling you?
Damn it, who changed the prompters? Yeah, the green room was effective as always. I'm Philly D.
Mr. Gemini.
Clickety clack a fact check of missjd.
As well as, for first time listeners, this is a 30+ year friendship between me and this jackass over here doing dad quotes, movie jokes, movie quotes, and dad jokes because we mash it up with all sorts of things. Yeah, we do boots and pants and boots and cats as well. But yeah, we love having good times. We talk about anything and everything with everybody because, again, we just want to have that conversation, which lately we've been having guest after guest after guest, and tonight is no different. Because we got our man, Mr. Surreal, in the house. So please, my friend, if you could, go ahead and tell the people who you are. And
what's up, party people, humans? My name's Surreal the MC. I'm based out of Omaha, Nebraska, but do things all over mostly the Midwest, but the United States, I suppose. But I work for a production company called Nice Enough Entertainment. That's niceenough.net. My email, zachsurreal@gmail, zachsurreal @gmail.com. If you feel like sending me your music, demos, links, videos, we book around the main 7 states in the Midwest, but all over the United States. And in fact, the boss, Strawstone's currently on a King ISO Strange Music tour with Table the Truth and Otis Julius from Los Angeles. So we work with all kinds of genres, all kinds of, a majority of it is hip hop based, but rock and in multiple genres, comedy shows, open mics. So please feel free to hit me up, send me your links and stuff. We're always looking for new talent. And and then it's Surreal the MC on all the streaming on and in IG and Facebook. I'm Surreal the MC everywhere, and niceenough.net.
Dude, that is dope. Which, that's
hopefully somebody with talent is listening to us.
Dude, and I love the fact that you were like, yo, send me your links, like give me your music, man. I being able to do what we do with the show, I also have a music show called Music Evolution, which originally was supposed to be hip hop evolution because it was really more about how we went, like we were talking in the green room. You go from, black slave music, Appalachian Trail stuff to all of a sudden you're getting all these samples and sounds, and this is now new hip hop and rap and everything else. So I love being able to get that, but doing Music Evolution, we get some really cool musicians on sometimes that are, whether they're a vocalist or they're actually doing their tracks or whatever. So I love being able to get that new music and playing it for people. So the fact that you're like, yo, let's do that too, man, that's dope. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I DJ for a lot of locals, a lot of regionals, and a lot of nationals, and I throw in regional. I have access about every streaming service, so whatever you're on, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, I can pretty much, or I can rip it, but I do play a lot of music sent to me in between for the house music in front of thousands and thousands of people. So I really encourage getting to hear new music from all over. More often you'd be like, well, you're going to, let's say I'm opening we got the Onyx RA, the Rugged Man show coming up that I'm DJing. So if somebody from like Kansas City or Philadelphia, or wherever, sends me their music, a lot more often than you think, kids in the audience will come up and be like, hey, that one song that went yada, 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 who was that? And then we share it that way. So it's a handy tool, and it's a way that we can connect through the music. So I encourage it. I love it. And I listen to everything. I get a lot of emails, a lot of texts, a lot of Facebook messages, and I take time to listen to everything.
That's so dope.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because that's because we've had this kind of conversation with other musicians and vocalists and stuff where it's like nowadays, because you have so many streaming platforms, because there are so many outlets, you don't really need a label anymore. You don't need like an A&R. You can just put your shit out there and you can be that next new hit. I mean, granted, it behooves you to have some people behind you that know what's what and how to help you out and stuff. But nowadays, you can just put your music out there, man. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it cuts out a middleman in a way there's obviously pros and cons with that. Having a machine behind you is useful in almost any business, but being an independent artist, you're right, because even the big acts merches, where with the exception of like movie placement of music, publishing, the merch game's where you're making your money as an artist. If you're touring, even playing clubs with like 100 people, 200 there, if you're selling those t-shirts, if you're selling the hoodies, the beanies, that's where it's at. Because people aren't buying a lot of physicals now. In the last year, vinyl sales have went up again, so records are selling a lot, and cassettes a little bit, but CD sales are down because streaming's up so much. So what I'm saying is that kind of, not everybody needs a label. If you have a team, if you have a solid merch person, if you have a solid tour manager, got your DJ, your hype guy, you can make some coin, go on the road and make some coin, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I mean, you were saying like the whole merch thing, and I got like Spaceballs, where it's like Spaceballs, the flamethrower, Spaceballs, the lunch, and it really is. That's where the money's at. Cause I mean, when you get into like
the computer is jammed.
But yeah, I mean, when you get into having like, an A&R and a producer, and I mean, when you start getting all those extra hands in the pot, you just getting the royalties pretty much just pays everybody for their time. You don't really make the money from there.
Yeah.
It's all the side stuff. It's the concerts. It's the merch. It's all that kind of stuff. So dude, that's
and I know for a number of years, the 360 deals were real popular. That's where the record labels kind of have their hand in all the cookie jars, like the publishing and the merch and stuff. And it all kind of depends on the platform and where you want to go with it too, because it's not, there's some labels that still are definitely helpful. It just depends on where you want to go and in what lanes you want your music to go, and also what lanes your music fit. Like if it's, if obviously with the internet you can swear a lot more than you used to be able to with FCC guidelines, but if you're going to be on a playlist where people are listening to it at their work, you're not going to, not to pick on somebody, but you're not going to listen to like Two Live Crew and Too Short at
I would
certain business establishments. I'm not picking on those guys because I love them. They're heroes of mine. I just using them as examples, but you're not, even the newer, that's an older example, but a lot of the newer trap music is too dirty to play in certain venues and on certain platforms. And that's not a diss by any means, but where your music's going to go.
I mean, that's very true. Cause my last restaurant I had, coming with the company that I was with, we're very much about our musical references and stuff. So we're very much about supporting just music as an art. And, we would be, it was nothing to have Wu-Tang bumping in the background at like 2:00 in the afternoon and some kids just come rolling in with their parents. And for the most part, most of our customers could care less. But on occasion, when you had a more, typical family dinner time, Friday or Saturday nights, we had to kind of curb the music. We had to go to a like Pandora. The one spot we had was Pandora. They had a non-explicit set. You can literally just bing and it would never play anything explicit. So it was cool because we could still play what we wanted, but now you're just listening to all the radio edits and stuff. And I'm just like, this is horrible. So sad. It's just Wu-Tang's not Wu-Tang without the curse words or N-bombs. Eazy-E needs you got to have that stuff, and it just to have that like dead honestly, air vocal or
that Wu-Tang had fewer than most even at the time when they came out. That it was
right, that's why I feel like they're more hip hop. They're not rap stars. They're hip hop artists. And
to some extent, I judge hip hop on like how well an artist can express themselves without using curse words or anything like that. Like
that's fair. And some stuff sonically is hard, where the artist might not cuss, the lyrics might not be explicit, but the sound of the music, like the beats, like a Deltron 3030, where it's real spacey and the bass and the drums, the automated drums are real heavy. It might. Even if it's not as much cussing or any cussing, like in a family environment, they might just want more like Jim Croce or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? Or even like metal. There's metal that cusses a lot and there's metal that doesn't cuss, but you're not going to want Cannibal Corpse. Well, maybe I feel like I'm picking on people, but I like the artist I'm saying, but you get, my grandma's not going to listen to Cannibal Corpse while she's eating spaghetti, I guess is the whole point of everything I'm talking about.
And I think that's a fair statement.
I mean, there's a heavy sound that doesn't necessarily incorporate the nasty language, but it's still
but
raw grittiness to it. Yeah,
right.
But it's still the music, whether it's rap or metal or punk or maybe even ska. Like the genre is not important, but the sound of the music's too explicit. Like the instruments and the sampling's just still so in your face. Fear of a Black Planet or Nations of Million, Public Enemy, like the bells and whistles, like the police whistles and stuff. It's really aggressive. Even just the music sonically is aggressive. And I think sometimes certain playlists and platforms, I don't know if people always consider that, like when they're making a music to be a placement in a certain place, like a background music or like elevator music or Muzak. Sometimes sonically it just doesn't fit because it's so aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I get that because I mean, you were just saying Muzak. You take because we've talked about this.
Nails,
well, yeah, because you take like 9 Inch Nails or Nirvana or something, and yeah, that's not going to be Friday night dinner time with the kids around. However, a Muzak version, the same exact notes, but on a very mild, way it's put together, it makes it more appealing. So yeah, I mean, your placement with overall tone, regardless of vocals or the words used. Yeah, I agree, man. That's a good point.
Led Zeppelin.
I'd also like to throw out when I'm eating spaghetti, all I listen to is Gigi Allen and Brother Lynch on. So I'm an exception to the rule. I just know the rule.
Dude, Brother Lynch, man, he's dope, right? I mean, but see, and that's I love a lot of Midwest cats. So the fact that you're out there, man, there's a lot of stuff going on because our one buddy Unreal, he's doing the one album with Chris right now and stuff, and it's like, dude, I got some like side tracks and stuff from him. He's like, you can't share this, but I'm going to let you listen in. I'm like, dude, this shit is dope, but you're not going to be playing that Friday night with, grandma eating spaghetti. It's not going to happen.
All I can think about is when you're stuck in an elevator and you have like the Muzak version of, what is it? The Dope Show? Or
like Marilyn Manson Dope Show?
Yeah. Like, is it the Dope Show? Where it's like the one where it's like, I want to pluck you like an animal.
No, that was the one I was saying. Where
that's 9 Inch Nails.
I cried a single tear the first time I heard that on an elevator. I was like, oh my God. Is that Closer by 9 Inch Nails?
Yeah, man.
Well, then you're sitting there and you're like, you start singing it out loud and you're like, oh.
I was like, damn it.
Well, I've never heard that. That's
it was like, that's
dude.
You're old now. Like
it's legit. Like there's bands that do this because there was this one orchestral group that was, legit, like took Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit and turned it into Muzak dentist elevator shit. And I'm in the elevator and I'm just like, all of a sudden I'm like bopping to it. I'm like, wait a minute. And he did the same thing. That's how we got to the whole story because he's doing the same thing. And he's just like, wait a minute.
I cried a little bit. Yeah.
Son of a bitch. It's like, God damn it. Yeah, dude. Ruined it. Trent Reznor deserves better than fucking elevators.
Or maybe he's that good that his music needed to be immortalized in different forms.
Well, dude, I mean, there's something to be said for that. I mean, Trent is actually a very, I think he's a well-trained musician and plays several different instruments himself. I mean, I think he writes most of all of the actual music for what they do and plays several of those instruments as well.
I think one time at band camp.
I think it's like a compliment, like when somebody mimics you or...
Yeah, emulation or copying, to imitate, that's the strongest form of flattery. Yeah,
it's form of flattery. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, man. Which, I mean, yeah, so you doing what you do now, I mean, you went from, I guess, making your own music. Now you pretty much just DJ more or less, or?
Well, DJ booking. I still host and MC shows once in a while, but I've always enjoyed being kind of the background guy. Like my heroes were like Terminator X, Public Enemy, Hurricane with Beastie Boys, or even like a send dog, like a hype guy with Cypress. Like to me, kind of being in the background, A, gives me more longevity as I get older, and B, it's fun for me to find like the new talent and then like book them or DJ them if it works right with their stage show. That's what I like. That's the role I like to take on, I guess.
Nice. Well, because you got to have that person. There's got to be somebody who does that. So, I mean, it should be somebody who enjoys doing it, right?
Yeah. Like Run the Jewels, Killer Mike.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Came from Atlanta with the Outcast camp and all that. And then LP from Company Flow. And then there's Track Stars, their DJ. And, Track Stars not necessarily out front in all the posters and stuff, but he's still an important important part of the live show. In that lane's what fascinates me, or I think that's just aces in their places. That's what I'm good at, I guess.
So speaking of Run the Jewels, do you know how Run the Jewels came to be?
It was the song the LP produced for Mike's solo album, I believe.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how they actually became Run the Jewels, where it's like they're now an actual group or a duo together. So Killer Mike had LP do a couple of his tracks, and he enjoyed working with him and the stuff that he did so well. Because I mean, LP at that point had already been around for like 2 decades or some shit, right? And he hits him up. And he's like, bro, he's like, you got to do my new album for me. And he's like, I don't have the time. And he's like, no, bro, you're going to do my new album for me. Kept harassing. Finally went to like the higher ups and got up their butts enough where they're just like, Killer Mike makes fucking money. LP, you're going to do this. And so, you know, the one thing was like Killer Mike was on Joe Rogan's show and he was telling this whole story. The funny thing is he called up LP at one point and was just like, bro, we're going to make an album together. And he's like, I don't have time. He's like, I legit cannot help you right now. And he's like, oh, come on. You didn't mean that. And it was like from then on out, after he got enough pressure from the rest of the people where they started working, like did a full album. They're just like, holy shit. And now they're Run the Jewel. And they are fucking dope, man. I mean, they even did the one track.
Yeah, they got a chemistry. Yeah.
But LP, I think so. LP and Killer Mike both had that a lot of great musical influence and kind of just got to a place in their career where they're like, we don't give a shit what you or who you know. We do it our way, and that's all there is to it. And they very much have that chemistry together. Plus, they're both teddy bears, man. They're both like big dudes and stuff, man. It's hilarious.
One of my favorite albums is Cannibal Ox, which LP produced years ago for the Def Jux. Yeah.
I still, man. Yeah. Dude,
I booked him years ago here in Omaha, and Omaha's hit or miss with like the super East Coast stuff. Like they obviously like the most Defs and that kind of stuff they know, but the stuff like RA's been, this will be the 3rd or 4th time RA's been through. So, but a lot of the sound bombing and Def Jux stuff, Omaha was a little slow to catch on to, but.
Which I think so.
Yeah, past there, those guys are dope.
Dope fucking label, man. I mean, you're talking idea and abilities. You know what I mean? Like fucking Aesop, not Aesop.
Yeah, I opened for Mike right before he passed. Rhyme Sayers. Yeah, I did an idea and ability show in at a venue here called Soul Underground, and that was crazy. You know, it is kind of crazy when your heroes pass. Even that he was real young, but even. You know, I saw Wu-Tang with ODB, and then I've seen him more recently with his son. And it's...
Oh, okay.
I was making a mental note the other day. I saw Jam Master Jay, I've seen MCA. Like, there was a lot. Wow. The list was, unfortunately, fairly long, but how many rock stars in hip-hop people, the older you get, you know, your heroes are start passing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you said MCA, and I love all of Beasties. I mean, you know, Ad Brock, Mike D, like, they're all dope, but... One of my favorite stories about Beastie Boys, because, dude, License to Ill is still one of my all-time favorite albums, period. Not just Beastie Boys, but like one of my all-time favorite albums. I was watching a show where they were talking with Ad Rock and Mike D, because, you know, obviously after MCA passed and stuff, and they were telling the story of how they actually came to make the beat for Paul Revere. And the 3 of them are in their studio by themselves, just getting baked out of their freaking minds. And MCA just has this like crazy idea. He's like, what if we recorded a beat on the DAT and played it backwards? Would that work? And then boom, Paul Revere was born. And it's just like, holy shit. And that's still one of the most iconic beats you will ever hear. I mean, it's legit the first reversed beat, and it's fucking and all the verses are dope. I mean, as soon as that shit pops on my Pandora, man, full blast, and I know every line. I'm killing it. I love Paul Revere.
That's the rule for your show, actually.
That is. So my music show, I don't care what the genre, the decade, none of that stuff matters to me. The legit last final test, just like we were talking about how like when you're producing an album, you got to put it in your car and that shit better sound right. If I can't play this track in my car at fucking Spinal Tap 11, I'm not putting it on the show, bro. It's not happening. If I can't jam this windows
Spinal
down,
Tap 11.
Right. Yeah, but dude, that's legit. I'm sitting in traffic, windows down, you know, sunroof open, and I don't give a shit who's around me. And it's like, yeah, I'm listening to Celine Dion right now. It's like, dude, if I can blast it, I'll put it on the air.
So, yeah, and on Green Room, you mentioned the Rick Rubin test. I actually have read that Tretch from Not Even My Nature used to do that too. He had an old beater, but it had a great system. He used to take like right from the studio. It hadn't been mastered, but it had been kind of mixed, and he would throw it in. And if it bumped, it was, yeah. If it didn't bump, you had to go back and remix it.
Yeah, I think I heard that too. And he seems like that type where, yeah, I mean, dude, 'cause going back to McCartney, man, what sounds right? Like, cause dude, this is, and I myself was aware of it, but didn't know it until I started reading books on sound engineering, where you're talking about, you know, headroom, you know, the bottom, you know, filling stuff in, having atmosphere, getting the right frequencies, and being able to play with the EQs, where if you give it an extra 400 or take a little 1500, like these little bit of EQing that you could do on an overall sound completely changes the body and tone. And it's like,
said atmosphere.
Dude, I love Slug. But that's exactly it. Like I while it sounded right, I didn't know why it sounded right. And then when I started to actually put the math behind it and learning what frequencies were and how they interact with another, and why, you know, the 400 and the 15 are like the big spots to be playing with, you know, yeah, dude, because dude, that makes or breaks, you know, a harmonic distortion. I mean, whether you have enough headroom or not, you can play with the 15 or the 4, and it makes all the difference.
Well, have you noticed though, like there's a lot of the popular artists, like Led Zeppelin's a great example, where every so many years they remaster like Zeppelin 4, so it's a little bit hotter, a little bit louder. And when you go back and listen to like playlists from the 70s and 80s, the bands who they've remastered, they're so much louder on the playlist. Like it'll be like, you know, like Journey, like some of those bands, I don't know specifically like off the top of my head, but maybe, you know, like obviously Led Zeppelin's been remastered more times than Deep Purple. I'm not picking on anybody's taste of music, but Zeppelin's like been remastered a lot.
Oh yeah.
And it's just so much hotter. Like obviously if you put in a Jay-Z or an Eminem song from the last couple of years, it's going to be louder than like Nas's first album, Illmatic or something. But it's even more so between the 70s and now. And I just like, if you put on the 70s, unless I think a lot of people's listening devices, like if it's a phone or computer, have a normalizing mode, so it kind of tries to EQ that out. But it's something I've been noticing a lot more.
Well, and yeah, I mean that's a solid point, because I think, you know, a lot of the remastering, they're really not going back and just like working on every single individual. They're just kind of like going back and just like re-EQing it almost. You know, they're just the things to be able to pop out more, like you said, gives it a hotter mix, because now all of a sudden that lead sticks out more, that rhythm section sticks out more, and it makes it a hotter flow. Like it just
right. In some of the bands, I'm sure the budget, like Pink Floyd, they sell enough copies of Dark Side, they can go in through each little and pay engineers to go and tweak it. But, you know, maybe like Edgar Winter doesn't. I don't know why I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just trying to use names of artists for an example. But
I mean, you're the one that keeps saying picking on, so I feel like now you're kind of projecting. So I'm not saying.
No, but I'm saying like the budget has a lot to do with it. Yeah. Like if you know, like if it's one of those catalog albums like the Eagles or something that still sells 1 million copies a year physical, they have a budget to go back and remaster the stuff.
Right.
It's just kind of the nature of the beast.
You know who Joaquin Phoenix is, right? The actor. Did you ever see the movie he did? I think it's I'm Still Here, where he wanted to quit acting and become a hip hop like rapper.
I'm aware it exists. I never watched it, but I'm aware it exists.
I mean, honestly, as a music guy, you'll probably enjoy it, because here's one of my takeaways from it is, here's Joaquin Phoenix, this award-winning actor, and he's like, you know, fuck it, I'm out, I'm done. I'm going to go home, become like a rap artist and stuff. Well, he gets, you know, somehow or another introduced or segued into, like, he gets a in with Diddy. And so he finally gets to sit down with Diddy, and he's talking about his album and this, that, and he's like, oh, da-da-da-da-da. And Diddy's like, cool, you got money? And he's like, well, I mean, I feel like, you know, he's like, yeah, he's like, studio time costs money, engineers cost money, production costs money, putting stuff out costs. He's like, you got money? He's like, dude, I'm happy to work with you, but he's like, I'm not going to float you, because I don't know. So I ain't giving you no advance. There's nothing, like, you need to pay me. And it's like, bro, you need to come with like 50 G's just to sit in the studio and get, you know, a week's worth of work with a good engineer and a producer. That shit costs money, man.
But I'm Joaquin.
Doesn't fucking matter, bro. But, but I think that's a great thing because, like you were just saying, I mean, you know, when you get that one album that sells really well, like I love Leonard Skinner, man. Leonard Skinner didn't go digital until like late 90s, almost the 2000s. But when they did, well, yeah, so you couldn't technically like stream for purchase any Leonard Skinner. You were still having to buy CD, cassette, or a vinyl.
Right. And they're one of those bands like Willie Nelson where they had like their tape sold at truck stops. Like that was a thing.
Right. Dude, that was a good reference. But yeah, so I mean, you know, fast forward to the point where they finally go digital. Well, their three main tracks, you know, like Tuesday's Gone, you know, Freebird, all that. When they went digital, they did pretty much the same sales of like everything else in digital downloads within a year. So I mean, when you get
I
something
can see that, I mean, they got some.
Right. But like you were saying, when you get something that's that iconic, something where it's like, oh, there's money here. It's like, yeah, we got some time and money to put into this to make it even better. Then it's like, yo, it's really going to sell. And that's why, yeah, I agree with you. You get so many different remasters because
it shows up in movies like years after it's produced, you know, like.
Yeah. In some of it, like in some of those bands, those like the retro or the nostalgic music does well when the like the Forrest Gump soundtrack. Like, because like a Pink Floyd or a Zeppelin have albums and albums, their whole discography, people will buy a whole box set of everything. And then there's some of those groups, like maybe like a Canned Heat, where they have one or two. So if it's on like a Vietnam type of compilation or a Forrest Gump type of soundtrack, then it kind of comes back in popularity too. And it's crazy how the publishing game works.
And it's like most industries, where's the money? Can we, does it seem feasible that we're going to get return on investment here? Like, you know, I need to know I'm putting in and I'm going to get out. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but yeah, man, money rules the world, man. Cash rules everything around me, right? Dude, but see, and that's the thing I really enjoyed most about Wu-Tang is regardless of how raw, gritty their actual sound was, because I mean, from a production level, dude, I mean, there were so many things where RZA just like overamped, uncued, like unEQ'd, and it's like, no, I need this. I want, like, it has to be here. And it's like, dude, yeah, without that distortion, without that extra static, like, dude, it wouldn't have sounded right. But I mean, yeah, you get those kind of individuals where, but yeah, with Wu-Tang, the lyrics were also raw. Their energy, you know, what they were putting out, their stories, their knowledge, like that was also raw. So I mean, it wasn't just, it was a full encompassed component where it's like the music to the production to the sound to the lyrics, but all of it had to be.
There was definitely something about the grittiness, though, because I remember like I made the mistake of playing one of the Wu-Tang albums like right after hooking up a stereo system, and I was like, this is probably not the best one to check with, because it always like their gritty sound almost sounded like you had busted one of your speakers in the back, like you weren't sure.
Yeah. Can it be so simple is a good example, because some of the soul and the singing samples are so soulful it still catches your ear, but then like the crackle in the background, you know, DJ Muggs, those first two Cypress albums were like that too, where the MPC production, the you know, the snares and the kicks were pretty clean, but the actual sample was kind of gritty, almost like he dirtied the record before he looped it.
Right.
Well, yeah, because I mean, even to this day, when I make some of my own beats and stuff, there's times where I'm just like, you know what, I shove my bass like through the fucking roof, but I mean, I'll chop off the top, like I'll compress it or something. I still want to get that gritty, raw
you don't
nature.
Want it to sound clean.
I do. You know? I don't want it to be clean, and I don't necessarily want it distorted, but I want some like crunch behind it. You know, it needs texture.
You know, I can appreciate that. It's some of the new cats, some of the underground and the young cats out that are doing like the trap rap and the trap metal in like the lo-fi and the cloud rap and stuff, the newer stuff. A lot of people from our generations pick on it, but the new artists and producers have the baseline game down. Like their baselines are sick. Like the stuff that's coming out. It's I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. I really like it, but the way they distort and where the bass lines are at sonically now is really good. Some of the beats are kind of simple on purpose, and they seem kind of candy coated on purpose. Some of it, but their bass lines are amazing.
Well, because they're trying to make sure that you're putting the emphasis behind it. So going back to like I was talking about, I didn't really understand certain things about sound engineer until I started doing the research and reading the books and stuff. There's 5 elements to making music. You know, you have to have your rhythm, your leads, you got your feels, you know, your atmosphere. Like you have to have all these different things where, you know, the pad is a supporting component that you don't necessarily hear. But if it's not there, it completely destroys that track. Well, going through and realizing that you really only need 2 to 3 of the elements and it should be a decent sounding track. So when you can add that, you know, bass line as almost like the lead or the rhythm, even though it's like a supporting component, it definitely stands out and sticks. So you really do want a simplified beat. You really do want a cleaner sound because that in and of itself kind of doesn't detract from the other components. It just sits kind of below it and just kind of, you know, that's why it's a good pad, you know, because there's been plenty of times where I have like 3, 4, 5, you know, like I'm pretty much pushing them all out and it's like, it sounds decent. It's like, it just needs some, you put a little bit of just that lo-fi, like fill in noise on the bottom that just, you really don't notice unless it's not there. And then when you take it away, all of a sudden you're like, why does it sound like crap? It's like, well, ping, you put that back in and it's like, you know, a couple of decibels, there's nothing to it. It's just this literal piece that's sitting on the bottom and it makes all the difference.
Yeah. Another thing too is like some of the like there's Coil Ray, Key Glock, City Morgue, Suicide Boys. The newer artists have really short songs, like 2.5 minutes. I notice people are like, why are their songs so short? But then you think about it, like back when people played 45s, like your Come On Baby, Do the Twist, like songs were only like 2.5 minutes back when the Beatles started too. It kind of came back around. So I don't think it's always that, it's not really fair. Like it just not everybody's tool with it, you know, on the 11, 12-minute song.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about dope, awesome, amazing bass lines? You said Suicide Boys, dude. Sometimes their lyrics aren't exactly what I'm into, but musically, the production behind it, dude, I bang damn near anything that those guys put together because it just sounds good. Like it hits.
Yeah,
well.
It does. Yeah, they took what like the 666 sound and kind of modernized it a little bit, and it does. Their production is really good. I agree.
Yeah, which I mean, it cracks me up because I mean, you get this really almost morbid rap kind of component, and you know, it turns most people off if you're not really into that kind of, you know, genre. But from me being just, you know, having that musical background, it's like, dude, I'm listening. I have respect for the production on it, you know. But I mean, that goes to like a bunch of other stuff where I'm like, well, you know, the writing was kind of bad, the acting was really horrible, but you know, the production was immaculate. It changes whether or not I'm actually going to watch it, because if it's an immaculate production, I'm still going to enjoy it.
It's funny. So there's a guy who runs a pretty well-known studio here in, I'm not going to call him out, but him and I kind of got in an argument about a week ago because we were talking about, see, I like to once in a while, I brought up Gigi Allen earlier, and his recordings are like sonically horrible. And the subject matter is horrible too, but that's a whole different story. But the point is, stuff that's demos, like I actually still enjoy listening to, like when kids will send me demos and I could, like, we're considering whether or not they should do like an open mic or like open for a regional or whatever. I kind of respect that. Like, I don't expect everything to be like Dream Theater, you know who that, like, or like a really well produced band or hip hop group. Even I kind of respect the art for what it is. And this engineer I was talking about, he's like, no, if it sounds horrible, I can't deal with it. I was like, but just if it sounds horrible, but the performance is there, I can interpret it in my mind that it'll probably be good live on stage. And I could not get anywhere with this guy. He's like, no, if it sounds horrible, I'm going to throw it away no matter what. I was like, okay,
part of it, like there's still things you can do to fix it a little bit, you know.
Yes, it's just a step one in their career. It's a demo. Like I have a lot of, to me, it's cool to hear that. And sometimes, you know, it's just in home studios actually sound way better now than they did 20 years ago. But there's still that rawness. I kind of respect that rawness about it. I couldn't get this guy to see me eye to eye on it. He was like, no. It's got to be the best. It's got to be ready to go to Capitol Records.
You can't afford that shit, man. Because, all right, so the first album I ever produced was me and a couple of friends. And for us to be able to record that album, we went and got a PV 8-track amp PA system because that was the cheapest thing we could afford that had multiple track sets. And we sent it right to a tape deck, a double tape deck so that we could record almost like old school DAT style where you put one thing on tape and then you take that sound and then you overlay it and you put it on the next tape and you're literally just layering track upon track upon track. And we had to do that because we didn't have any other way to record, so we'd have to take like 3 tracks from the guitar. Cool. Boom. Lay down, we take like 6 tracks for the drums so we can get a clean enough sound. And I mean, for what it was, it was horrible, but there was a lot of heart behind it. And you could tell that there was, intent in design. And it's like, dude, we took our time to layer those tracks out with the equipment we had. And dude, there was a lot of heart. And I mean, people enjoyed it, but it didn't sound, it wasn't capital. Like you said, it's not capital ready, just because the sound quality,
I mean, the talent is still coming through, like the word choices, the vocals, the
inflections, the tones, all that stuff.
Like, even though you're not hearing it as crisp and good production quality, like you can still hear like, okay, there's some definite art in here. If like there's
exactly, that's exactly right.
Like, you could step in as a sound engineer and like improve it 200%. That the artistry is already there. To
me, it's like a rough draft of a book. Like, it doesn't need to be Romeo and Juliet right out the gate. It was, what do we got? What's the vision? What is the artist? What's the chemistry? How's it going to fit in a show? Like somebody might actually have a really well mixed and mastered demo that actually has catchy hooks, but is it going to maybe it's too left field. It's not going to flow on a show. Who am I going to book them with? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because I mean, like one of my things that I think about is from a production standpoint is you have plenty of horrible artists that just look good, and you have the right engineers and producers, they can make it sound good. So now it looks good and it sounds good, but it's all shit at its like core content. But then you can take the same regard and you can get actual good content and it sounds like crap. And it's like, yo, that shit's actually dope. So, I mean, you can clean up a piece of shit and, polish a turd and make it look good. Doesn't mean it's good music though. Just because it sounds right or looks good, it's not good. I mean, there's plenty of, Iggy Pop, right? Like you're talking about like the Stooges and stuff. You're doing literal left and right independent, recording. So you're getting the guitars in the left, the drums are in the right, and you're just pushing back and forth. And it sounds, there's so much aggression that's super hot. There's tons of stuff to it. It just sounds really good because there's a lot of passion and heart behind it. Even though overall, like production quality of how they recorded it, it was shit. But it added to its quality. Like
they spent time. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy. That makes sense.
Well, that's why I said something with like 36 chambers. It's just the grittiness was put in there on intention. Like it was punk rock, hip hop. It's like, we're gonna be
for sure.
We're gonna thing like if Nirvana had a clean sound, it wouldn't have been.
Oh my god! It'd be music, bro.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been the same thing. Like it was the distortion. It was not just the lyrical choices, but the way it was sung and the way the way the instrumentals went together. It didn't require a lot of production. I mean, it was a 3-person.
Yeah, it was a trio.
It was a 3-person
bass,
band,
guitar, drummer.
But still, at the same time, like you look at how many albums were sold, it wasn't on a strictly production.
No, it was content.
Right.
I mean, mind you, Nirvana, by the time they did, after you did Nevermind and Incesticides and all that, when you got into In Utero, man, In Utero production wise was literally an immaculate production. They put it together in a very clean fashion.
I always thought that album was cool because they had in the liner notes that had the suggestion on where to EQ it. I thought that was really cool.
But dude, that goes back to like, this is why I loved getting the cassettes and stuff and the vinyls and things, because you had liner notes, man. I would devour that shit. Nobody reads about what they're just like, oh yeah, how hot's the track? Okay, cool, I can listen to it. And then it's that was so 23 seconds ago. I want those liner notes.
The original vocal notes from the artist.
Oh yeah,
where like I'm thinking like Pearl Jam 10, like when you had
dude, that thing was thick.
You actually had the lyrics.
Oh, and they're scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, and like,
dude, you opened the liner notes and it was like 20 pages long, like a fucking atlas map or something. You don't even know how to fold it back into the cassette holder. Like, Jesus. I miss that shit.
There is
dude.
something to be said about all that.
I always like Weird Al's notes because he is like his fan club was like good personal friends of Al. Like he doesn't know him, but I mean, like every little detail he paid attention to.
Dude, and yes, I mean, I think Weird Al's a great, spot to put it on because, I mean, musically, he's immaculate. I mean, mind you, he's taking other people's music, but he still had to replay it and retone it so that it worked with his vocal structure, like his note scales and all that stuff. So, I mean, musically, like his stuff is really fucking clean. I mean, it's hilarious as shit, and that's why I was like, going back to the whole polish
but
turd.
It works because he's a performer.
Well,
like he's not a musician just. Like he's a performer.
And that's why I think what it really comes down to is the intent. That's like you were saying with the whole demo thing. It's like, it doesn't have to be perfect and clean. I'm listening to what's really there. What's the substance that's coming from this, man? I need intent here.
Yeah. Full circle with RZA. I mean, even it was genius the way they did the spin-offs of the solo albums and stuff, but kept the same genre of kung fu movie samples, like Jizza's second actual album, I guess, because Words from the Genius was the first, but Liquid Swords is
at that point it was no longer just the Genius, he was now Jizza the Genius, so technically that was his first album as Jizza the Genius.
That is,
that's true.
Sorry,
Liquid Swords
gonna be technical. Dude,
of all hip hop album ever.
Oh yeah, dude. So much so that the company I work for doing the music and stuff, we have Liquid Swords is our #1 selling beer, and I love the shit out of it. I mean, it's a great beer.
That's awesome.
Jizza from Wu-Tang, man. Come on. But yeah, you were saying though.
I got the privilege of opening for Jizza a couple years ago in Lincoln, Nebraska, and he's a really cool guy. Yeah,
you're an asshole.
He's real chill.
I believe you. I believe you, man. I mean, that's what I like about the, I don't know if you've seen it, but the American Saga, the Wu-Tang story or whatever that's on Hulu. And
I've seen the first 2 seasons. I haven't watched the third yet.
Dude, the third one's way dope because they get into like some like really cool like cinematographic stuff where it's like, dude, they make some really awesome episodes and they get into it's almost like a mini movie. So yeah, you got to watch the 3rd season.
I'm taking my time to catch up on it, and then I want to start it from the beginning and watch it all over again. But
I was getting kind of geeked when like the Killer Priest and like the side characters come out too, and it's like
real nostalgia.
Yeah, it is a good show.
Well, I mean, and that's why going back to again that whole like polished turd kind of a thing. You're talking about like 9 dudes that by themselves could have had and for the most part have their own careers. And they came out. I mean, Wu-Tang changed the industry. Before it was, hey, you get one person to get signed, and now you can bring your friends with you. They're like, nah, we all do it, and we're done. And I mean, they changed the game.
How Method was on Def Jam, and like Raekwon was on, I don't remember which label, but and then Ghost. They weren't. It was incredible to me that they were all on different labels. Gravediggers was even on a different label. Like in the past, when people tried anything remotely like that. The solo records were like Terminator X's Public Enemy was on Def Jam. Terminator X was on Def Jam. I think Sister Soldier was on Def Jam. Chuck D's solo was on Def Jam. It was all Def Jam. But Wu-Tang had it in their contract so they could all go to different labels. I thought that was crazy.
RZA and Jizza having that industry experience, they're like, yeah, we need to make sure that we're able to retain our rights because they realize what the royalties really were. And it's like, yo, you need to own your shit. And it's like, well, it doesn't mean you can't go somewhere else. It just means that everything comes back to you and you got to retain that.
No, but the idea of not being able to retain your master, like that's crazy. Like as an artist anywhere doing anything, like
you want to make it.
That's like telling a painter they can't keep their original copy of their painting.
Right.
Like, Farside did a song about that, how you're selling your soul on the 2-inch reels of tape. Well, I mean, even Wu-Tang back to them first of all, who's your A&R mountain climber who plays an electric guitar? Like and then you got to read the labels. Jizza for sure talks about it in numerous songs.
When he's looking for a suit and tie that's cleaner than bar of soap. Yeah.
And I'm the dirtiest thing in sight. Matter of fact, bring out the girls and let's have a mud fight. Like That's ill, but
they had fun with it. You know what I'm saying? They had fun with it.
Dude, and this is what, going back to the whole solo artist, that you said Gravediggers, and as soon as you said that, I was just like G to the R to the A, and I was just like, damn it, get out of my head. I had to instantly went to that shit.
They like Wu-Tang really took off, and then because they pitched it. So there's a story that they pitched it to Russell Simmons for Def Jam, and he stole their idea and did Flatliners. It's an interview with Prince Paul, if I remember. Because remember Flatliners, they had one record about USA, United States. It was like a satanic horrorcore rap. I actually had it on tape. I liked them, but I kind of lost my train of thought. But then you get into the whole like who invented horrorcore? Was it Gangsta Nip from Rap-A-Lot and Ghetto Boys Camp, or was it Esham from Detroit who influenced ICP? That's a whole different side. We could probably go another hour on that, but but back to Gravediggers. Prince Paul feels like Def Jam stole their idea.
Dude, so we were legit just talking about Prince Paul the other night. Because to me, I mean, all right, so let's go back to Blues Brothers, Aretha Franklin with, Think. That entire intro, Think, was Third Base Cactus album, which is Professor Prince Paul with MC Serch. And dude, they like straight stole all the dope ass cuts from all those amazing, like I think Steely Dan and like all sorts of weird shit.
They did. I mean, De La 3 Feet High and Rising and Third Base Cactus. There's both those albums, and even like the first KMD, that era there's a sampling was super sick. Like, because they were digging through like the crates. There's a documentary too with Q-Tip from Tribe where he's talking about the hot spots where him and like Pete Rock and people would run into each other because like the digging in the crate guys, and there was only so many. As big as New York is, there's still only so many spots where you could really get like the underground cuts to sample and stuff.
Dude, yeah, because I mean, so me being a DJ back in the late 90s, we had a spot in New York was 6th and 6th Street and 6th Avenue. That was the DJ spot. That's where you could either find the equipment that fell off a truck, or you found all the dope vinyls and CDs. And they didn't just have like a good copy. They usually had one or two extra on top of it. So it's like when you found that dope shit, you're just like 1 and 2. I'm going to take both of these. I mean, that's a huge thing, but that goes back to the whole like Cool Herc merry-go-round kind of thing where it's like you need to have 2 really clean cuts because then you can just really fuck with shit. And that's when you can just cut up the break beats and just get into it. I mean, that's that Rick Rubin shit,
A lot of good old stuff came with instrumentals too, though.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is like you're taking it from that Cool Herc, basically an apartment party where it's like, 70 people stacked into this little shithole with a sound system and 2 turntables. And now all of a sudden you got all the sounds you want. You got MCs doing their things and dope ass parties. Like there's something very raw and honest that is an homage to the roots of hip hop with sampling, taking that shit that maybe you forgot about and it's just, you turn it into something like super dope.
Grandmaster Flash was just in Vegas at the NAMM convention where they sell audio equipment like guitars and DJ equipment and all kinds of stuff. But is it NAMM? Maybe it's NAMM. NAMM.
Yeah.
missjd would I don't know how to pronounce it. No, but Grandmaster Flash recently was giving he was there doing like not classes but like showing people like a tutorial, I guess would be the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And because there's some of the like the Rain in the Vestex and Pioneer, some of the people still use with Serato like the vinyl platters, and then some people use controllers. So the technology, some of the people still hold on to some of the old technology in blend it with the new technology, and then some people just straight up use the new DJ technology. But Grandmaster Flash has been touring and showing people how they used to like take 2 copies and manipulate it and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean that's really cool. I learned how to spin vinyl. Was my guy came to me like I was like, yo, I want to be a DJ, and he's like, well, then here's what you do. He's like, when you can line up from beat to beat, when you can merry-go-round anything, he's like, now you're a DJ. So, I mean, I would spend hours in my, in my studio, my lab, which was
sync 2 different tracks up.
But it was more than that. It was, you would get the one running the loop and you would take them and throw them off pitch. and then you'd have to beat match and then make sure you came right back in and then be able to spin it back. So I'm sitting there for hours and hours taking everything in and out of pitch and getting them to sync up over and over and over again, dude. You get to a point where your ear just starts to pick up on those little cues and makes all the difference. But you got to do the work, man. I mean, that's where the guys came from. That's what started hip hop, more or less. Like
there was that for part of the 90s, everything was 98 beats per minute, and it was really it was made a little easier.
Yeah, most of the stuff was pretty synchronous back then. Yeah, that's for sure. But I mean, that also goes to what was selling on the radio. You know what I mean? So it's like what made the money. So people were just copying. It's like, I don't know why this works, but it works. We're going to do something like that, and they would do it. You know?
You like James Brown?
Yeah. Funky drummer and all that. So it's those records like of James Brown, Hot Pants, or Funky Drummer, or even like a bongo band, the dun 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 Apache and stuff. Like they still, the break beats on them still, obviously the breakers would break to them, but people go crazy at parties still. They just, or even like a George Clinton Atomic Dog, just the records, some of those records are just, they're timeless,
Well, yeah, because I mean, think about this. Digital Underground, Shock G and Humpty Hump, which is the same fucking dude. He just puts fucking glasses with the nose on. Dude, they legit took Parliament's flashlight from Mothership Connection, and then turned it into rhyming on the funk.
But it's so fitting.
It's legit the instrumental, and all they did was just throw their lyrics on top of it. Like they didn't even just sample; they fucking copied that shit and. It still works.
It was the original track.
It was the instrumental to it. That's why that track is like 7 minutes or 7.5 minutes long, because it was straight the instrumental of Flashlight.
Oh man, I used to love the Sex Packets and EP release. All around the world,
just tell me how many.
Digital Underground is super underrated. They are sick. Even that was it.
I got hooked on that for a while back in the day.
My dad, I've never told anybody this, I don't think. My dad, he's retired meat cutter. He's in his early 70s now. He knows no nose job, like all the words. He saw it one day on like YoMT Raps or something. And to this day, he'll be like, remember Humpty? Dodio do, there'll be no nose job. That's just a side note. It's he knows about Humpty dance and stuff too. I don't know what his infatuation was with digital.
That's gotta feel good though, you know what I mean?
But it's catchy, man. Yeah. Dude, Sex Packets is by far an immaculate production. I mean, the fact that you literally have one dude doing two different voices and the production work, it's like, dude, that's the epitome of being a garage band or just making shit out of nothing, which I think is really the core of hip hop, taking very little and making a lot and supporting yourself and your community with it. Like that's some hot shit, bro. There's so many good tracks on that album. So many good, dude. That is.
No, there is. Is Underwater Rhymes on there? Underwater, underwater, and Do What You Like. Guys and girls dancing. I'm the pocket man.
Yeah, dude, oh my, dude, that
I'm the one who said just grab him in the back. I love that,
dude. I gotta get that album out right now, Jesus. But I mean, that was so going to Midwest Cats and like all that kind of stuff. Merce was doing some stuff with Shock G, so that when he did something around the world, it was their I think it was like his 6th or 7th album that Merce put out, the White Album. He got Shock G and a couple of them cats to come in on it, and dude, there's so many dope tracks on that shit, like. When you can get those kind of people in the industry where you can see that heart, that passion, and the intent, and they're just like, dude, I don't give a shit what it sounds like. Let's make a fucking track together. That shit is awesome, man.
DJ Fuse and Money B. Everybody, the lineup changed over the records, but I wasn't a huge fan of Kiss Me and I'll Kiss You Back. That was a little bit soft. Now I like it, but back when it came out, I was like, this is kind of weak. But the rest of that album was pretty good.
Yeah, man. There's just, and while the East Coast is where hip hop started, the West Coast is where like rap came from. I really feel like the past decade plus, the Midwest has the greatest scene. Specifically strange music. I fucking love Tech Nine. I'm talking from back like in angelic days to where his douchebag dude that screwed him over and all that, to him getting into the the red hair and trying to stand out and get on MTV and whatever. Dude, Tech Nine has been through the gamut. He's been here for decades. The Midwest is very much, I think, the prime example of that. Again, idea and abilities, Merce and Slug, like and just Aesop.
Like intelligent rap, though. I mean,
dude, there's an intent. I want to say intent. I like that word.
But I mean, it was like,
yeah, that was their focus. That was their, because I mean, you even get what's his name.
I mean, when I think of rap, I don't necessarily think poet. But like with their stuff, like it's more than just intent. There was an artistry to it. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean by intent.
Like a wordsmith. You know what I mean?
Dude, for sure. But that's what to me is intent, because it's not just like it goes beyond the lyrics, the music. It has to be all of it. There has to be a culmination to it. Like there has to be a point. There's an intent to it. Yeah, heart or passion. But that's why that's why I say intent. Like it's got to be.
Yeah, I mean, being in the Midwest, I remember how hard Strange, Travis and Tech and those guys would grind when Angelic came out in Absolute Power and the early albums. Like they were just grinding and grinding, and they had the wrapped the vans that were wrapped with the logo, the album covers and the logos, and they were on it, and they shared fans and tours a lot with Cottonmouth Kings and Insane Clown Posse and Twisted back then. And
Kings, bro.
Like the Juggalos were cool with Strange music, and their work ethic I applaud. And even now with like King ISO, who is on tour right now. I mean, he's from Omaha. Like his work ethic is amazing. And just at the gym, the dude's like buff, but just the studio and the songwriting and the nonstop touring. Strange music, definitely. And Psychopathic Records and Suburban Noise, like a lot of those camps, their work ethic's amazing. I applaud it.
That's what it takes. But yeah, dude, I like the fact that you said Cottonmouth Kings, because you're the first person I've ever met that actually knows who the hell they are. Like you straight up just
really?
You're like, well, dude, they're a Rancho Cucamonga group, man. They're a Cali Cats. Like, I mean, they kind of popped out in the late '90s with what the hell was it? Something about the
Suburban Life. Suburban Life. It was on the Scream soundtrack, maybe Scream 2 soundtrack. But, yeah.
But most still don't know who the hell they are, and it's like, honestly, like for a low budget Rancho Cucamonga, California group, they're actually pretty catchy, man. That's some good shit.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of opening for those guys a few times at some really big shows, and they were always. In fact, I got a couple times got to smoke up with Pakalinka, R.I.P. Their dancer that did. And D-Lo, those guys were always really cool too. Brad and Cottonmouth Kings were always cool. They played because they used to. There's that on the green room. I told you the first show I ever went to without parents was Ice-T. It was at this infamous bowling alley venue here in Omaha called the Ranch Bowl. That's no longer there. But I met the Cottonmouth Kings there too, and they used to just grind. And they had the Lou Dog had the drum set that was the lowrider bike and stuff. They were pretty cool.
Dude, that is which that's probably a good spot, because we're pretty much at that spot, which I love about us. Yeah, when we really just get into something where there's tons of substance and things that it's time to go now. But yeah, fam, this has been amazing. You Surreal, I from the first few times that we talked, I mean, especially from the people that I got introduced to you through, I knew this was going to be dope. I'm really glad you made the time for us. So, we appreciate you just as much as you us. So thank you so much. Fam, this has been awesome as always. And like we always tell you, be good to yourself. Be good to everything else.
Much love.
Peace.
Peace.